The sun blazed over Lagos, casting a golden hue on the sprawling city as preparations for the wedding of David Okonkwo and Clara Bodu reached their crescendo. The venue, a lavish open-air garden in Victoria Island, buzzed with vibrant energy. Guests in colorful Osoebi fabrics milled about, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic beats of a live Fuji band. David, resplendent in a tailored navy suit, adjusted his tie nervously, his heart swelling with anticipation. Clara, his fiancée, was the woman of his dreams, sharp-witted, kind, and radiant, with a smile that could calm the wildest Lagos traffic. As the officiant called for the couple to exchange vows, David's eyes locked with Clara's. Her white lace gown shimmered under the sunlight, and her eyes sparkled with love. But just as she began to recite her vows, a commotion erupted at the edge of the crowd. A woman, dressed in a simple Ankara dress, pushed through the guests, her face etched with urgency. David squinted, trying to place her. She looked vaguely familiar, like a shadow from a forgotten dream. "Stop the wedding," the woman shouted, her voice cutting through the music like a blade. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara's hand tightened on David's, her smile faltering. The woman, now at the altar, held up a tattered envelope, her hands trembling. "David, you cannot marry her. Clara is your half-sister." The words seemed to tilt. David's heart thudded in his chest as murmurs swelled around them. Clara's eyes widened, her bouquet slipping from her grasp. "What nonsense is this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. The officiant, a portly man with a clerical collar, raised his hands for calm, but the woman pressed forward, her eyes locked on David. "My name is Grace Nwosu," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I worked for your father, Michael Okonkwo, before he died. This letter," she waved the envelope, "was written by him. It reveals the truth about Clara's parentage." David's mind raced. His father, a wealthy real estate magnate, had died 5 years ago in a car accident on the Third Mainland Bridge. David had inherited his empire, but the man's personal life had always been shrouded in mystery. Could this be true? He reached for the letter, but Clara snatched it first, her hands trembling as she tore it open. The crowd fell silent as Clara read aloud, her voice breaking with each word. "My dearest David, if you're reading this, I'm gone. There's a secret I've kept, one that weighs heavy on my soul. Clara Bodu, the girl you know, is my daughter, your half-sister. Her mother, Evelyn, was my love before I married your mother. I never told you, fearing it would tear our family apart. Forgive me." Clara dropped the letter, her face pale. David staggered back, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief. The guests erupted into whispers, some clutching their gaily head wraps in shock. Grace stepped closer, her eyes soft with pity. "I'm sorry, David. I found this letter among your father's things when I cleared his office. I couldn't let you marry her without knowing." Clara turned to David, tears streaming down her face. "This can't be true," she whispered. "We've been together for 3 years. How could we not know?" David's throat tightened. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was a mistake, but the weight of the letter's words anchored him to the spot. The officiant, sensing the escalating tension, called for a recess, and the guests dispersed, their murmurs trailing like smoke. As David and Clara retreated to a private tent, Grace followed, her expression grim. "There's more," she said quietly. "Your father's lawyer, Mr. Thompson, has documents that confirm this. But there's something else, something dangerous. Michael was involved in something shady before he died. I think someone wanted this secret buried forever." David's eyes narrowed. "What are you saying?" Grace glanced around, lowering her voice. "Your father's death wasn't an accident. And whoever killed him might come for you if this truth gets out." The wedding was cancelled, the guests sent home with apologies and half-hearted promises of rescheduling. David and Clara sat in his Lekki mansion, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions. The letter lay on the coffee table, its words burning into their minds. Clara, still in her wedding gown, stared at it as if it might vanish. "We need to find Mr. Thompson," David said finally, his voice hoarse. If there's proof, he'll have it. Clara nodded, her eyes distant. David, what if it's true? What if we're siblings? The word hung in the air like a curse. David clenched his fist. We'll figure this out. But we need answers, now. They drove to Mr. Thompson's office in Ikoyi, the city's lights blurring past them. The lawyer, a wiry man with a penchant for bow ties, greeted them with a somber nod. I've been expecting this day, he said, pulling a sealed file from his desk. Your father left strict instructions. This was to be opened only if someone discovered Clara's identity. Inside the file were birth certificates, photos, and a notarized affidavit. Clara's mother, Evelyn Baudu, had been Michael's secretary in the early 90s. Their affair had produced Clara, but Evelyn had raised her alone in Abuja, far from Michael's family in Lagos. The documents confirmed it. Clara was Michael Okonkwo's daughter. David felt the room spin. Clara's hand found his, but the touch, once comforting, now felt foreign. Why didn't he tell us? She whispered. Thompson sighed. Michael feared scandal. His business rivals would have used this to destroy him. He kept it hidden to protect you both, and his empire. But Grace said his death wasn't an accident, David pressed. What do you know about that? Thompson's face darkened. Michael was investigating a land deal gone wrong. He'd uncovered something, corruption, maybe worse. He told me he was being followed days before the crash. I advised him to go to the police, but he refused. Then, the accident. David's mind raced. His father's car had plunged into the lagoon, the official report citing brake failure. But now, doubt gnawed at him. Who was he investigating? He asked. Thompson hesitated. Chief Sanwo, his biggest rival. But there's no proof. Be careful, David. If Sanwo is involved, he's dangerous. As they left the office, Clara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face paling. It's a text from an unknown number, she said, showing David the screen. The message read, "Stop digging, or you'll end up like your father." The threat sent a chill through David. He insisted Clara stay at his mansion, where he could protect her. But Clara, ever defiant, refused to hide. If someone's after us, I want to know why, she said, her eyes blazing. We're in this together, David, sister or not. Reluctantly, David agreed. They began investigating Chief Sanwo, a towering figure in Lagos real estate known for his ruthless tactics. David's father had clashed with him over a prime plot in Eco Atlantic, a deal that had soured just before Michael's death. Could Sanwo have orchestrated the crash to silence him? They visited Grace, who lived in a modest flat in Suralere. She was nervous, her eyes darting to the windows. I shouldn't have come to the wedding, she said. They are watching me now. Who's watching you? David demanded. Grace hesitated, then pulled out a USB drive. I found this in Michael's office. It's encrypted, but I think it's about the Eco Atlantic deal. I didn't know who to trust until now. David and Clara took the USB to a tech-savvy friend, Emma, who ran a cybercafe in Yoba. Emma cracked the encryption, revealing documents detailing a money laundering scheme tied to the Eco Atlantic project. Michael had been gathering evidence against Sanwo, who was funneling millions through shell companies. The final document was a draft email to the EFCC, Nigeria's anti-corruption agency, never sent. This is why he was killed, Clara said, her voice trembling with anger. He was going to expose Sanwo. Emma's face grew grim. Guys, this is big. Sanwo has connections, politicians, police, even cultists. You're in over your heads. That night, as they drove back to Lekki, a black SUV tailed them. David floored the accelerator, weaving through traffic on the Lekki Expressway. The SUV kept pace, its tinted windows hiding its occupants. Clara clutched her phone, ready to call for help, but David swerved into a side street, losing the pursuers in the maze of Lagos's backroads. We need to go to the EFCC, Clara said, breathless. This is bigger than us. Not yet, David said, unsure. If Sanwo's people are watching, we need a plan. Going public could get us killed. The next morning, David received a call from an old friend, James, a journalist with The Guardian Nigeria. I heard about your wedding, James said. What happened? David hesitated, then told him everything. James whistled low. That's a bombshell. Listen, I've got a contact in the EFCC. I can get those documents to the right people, but you need to lay low. They met James at a small restaurant in Ikeja, handing over copies of the USB's contents. James's face grew serious as he scanned the files. This is explosive, he said. But there's something else. I dug into Sanwo's dealings. Rumor has it he's tied to a secret society. If he's after you, you're not just dealing with a businessman. David's blood ran cold. The notorious cult was known for its brutal enforcement tactics. If Sanwo was involved, their lives were in greater danger than he'd imagined. As they left the restaurant, Clara's phone rang. It was Grace, her voice frantic. They came to my house last night, she said. Men with guns. They took everything, Michael's old files, my laptop. I'm leaving Lagos. David's heart sank. Where are you now? I'm at the airport. David, they know you have the USB. You're not safe. The line went dead. Clara grabbed David's arm. We can't wait any longer. We need to end this. But before they could act, David's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Give me the USB, or Clara dies. David's hands shook as he showed Clara the message. Her face hardened. We are not giving up, she said. Let's set a trap. David and Clara devised a plan to lure Sanwo's men into the open. They leaked a fake meeting location to James, knowing Sanwo's spies might intercept it. The location was an abandoned warehouse in Opopo, far from prying eyes. They arrived at dusk, armed with nothing but their wits and a hidden recorder. James had promised to have EFCC agents nearby, but David wasn't taking chances. He'd hired a private security team, led by a grizzled ex-soldier named Benga. As they waited in the shadows, two men emerged, their faces obscured by masks. One held a gun, the other a briefcase. The USB, the armed man growled. David held up a decoy drive. First, tell me why my father was killed. The man laughed coldly. Your father was a fool. He thought he could take down Chief Sanwo. Hand it over, or we'll take it from your corpse. Before David could respond, Benga's team sprang into action. A firefight erupted, bullets ricocheting off the warehouse walls. Clara pulled David behind a crate, her eyes fierce. We can't let them get away. In the chaos, one of the men grabbed the decoy USB and fled. Benga's team subdued the other, unmasking him to reveal a scarred face David recognized, a former associate of his father's, Victor. You betrayed him, David spat. Victor sneered. Your father was weak. Sanwo offered me a better deal. The EFCC arrived, arresting Victor. But the second man had escaped with the decoy. David's heart sank. The real USB was safe, but Sanwo would soon realize he'd been duped. James's EFCC contact confirmed the documents were enough to launch an investigation into Sanwo, but without the second man, the case was shaky. David and Clara tracked down leads on the man's identity, discovering he was Sanwo's enforcer, known as Scorpion. Desperate, they turned to an unlikely ally, Evelyn, Clara's mother, who lived in Abuja. Evelyn, now a retired nurse, was stunned to learn the truth about David's parentage. Michael never told me he had a son, she said, tears in her eyes. But he mentioned Sanwo once. He feared him. Evelyn revealed a hidden safe in her home, containing a ledger Michael had left her, a backup of his evidence against Sanwo. He said it was insurance, she said. I never knew what it meant. The ledger detailed Sanwo's ties to the secret cult, including names of corrupt officials. David and Clara returned to Lagos, handing the ledger to the EFCC. Days later, Samuel was arrested in a dramatic raid, his empire crumbling under the weight of the evidence. But Scorpion remained at large. One night, as David and Clara sat in his mansion, the lights went out. A shadow moved in the darkness. Scorpion. He lunged at Clara, but David tackled him, the two men grappling on the floor. Clara grabbed the vase, smashing it over Scorpion's head. He collapsed, unconscious. The police arrived, taking Scorpion into custody. As the dust settled, David and Clara sat together, the weight of their shed blood heavy between them. "What now?" Clara asked, her voice soft. David took her hand, careful to keep his touch brotherly. "We rebuild. Together. As family." Months later, Samuel's trial dominated the headlines. David and Clara, now navigating their new reality as siblings, worked to restore their father's legacy. The Okonkwo Empire flourished, its profits funding scholarships for underprivileged children in Lagos. But the scars remained. David often caught Clara staring at the horizon, her eyes distant. Their love had been real, but it had been built on a lie. Yet, in their shared grief, they found strength. Grace returned to Lagos, joining their team as a trusted advisor. Together, they vowed to uncover every secret their father had left behind, determined to protect his legacy and each other. As they stood on the balcony of David's mansion, watching the Lagos sunset, Clara whispered, "Do you think he's watching us?" David smiled, his heart heavy but hopeful. "I know he is."